Today, let's talk about health from a charge perspective. And by charge, I mean voltage. And when you're talking about voltage, voltage is related to body pH. And so we are electrochemical beings. Our bodies function on electrochemical gradients. I'm sure you've all heard of sodium and potassium. Well, there's sodium and potassium pumps on every cell that pump sodium and potassium in and out, and that creates an electric charge. When you do that, you know, the heart is an electric based organ. Well, the whole body has charge, every cell has charge, every tissue and organ has charge, and the charges vary based on the cell type, tissue type, etc. And the charge is related to the pH. So are you too acidic or too alkaline or just right? And so to get to that part of the conversation, I want to first walk us through some previous videos that we've made that lead up to this conversation, so that if you weren't present at previous videos, you can go back on the YouTube channel and find these and watch them to kind of fill in the gaps. So the first one here you can see is a video I made in April 2020 called EMF and 5G, Are They Safe for Human Use? And in this video, we talk about, EMFs, which are electromagnetic fields, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, cell phones, computers, Wi-Fi, does this stuff impact our health? This video walks us through that and shows you that, yes, in fact, it does, and talks about how. And one of the ways that it impacts our health is its negative impact on our electric charge and our voltage. So check that video out. We then, at a later time, a year later, this year, April 5th, we did one on earthing, or grounding as it's called, and talked about, do you have electron deficiency syndrome, which basically, is a Western society issue. So people who live in cities that live in high rises and never walk on grass and never see grass, never connect to the earth, can have electron deficiency syndrome. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors evolved in contact with the ground almost 100% of their lives, right? And so we have a relationship with the planet that helps, that impacts our personal electromagnetic fields, and our personal electromagnetic fields have evolved within the Earth's electromagnetic field. So earthing or grounding, which essentially is going barefoot, can help deal with health maladies by restoring the right charge or the right pH, by basically reconnecting you with the earth and the right electromagnetic field, the right charge, the right frequencies. So watch that video to see a deeper explanation of that. The next one here is, this is from way back in 2018, but I made this, is toxic water causing your chronic disease. And so this video, I talk about a water system that I had installed in my house that cleans the water of toxins, of antibiotics, of glyphosate, of bacteria, of viruses, of chlorine, which is a major objective way to see, did it work? Because before I had it installed, I would get in the shower and just smell chlorine. And I'm sure many of you have had that experience, but 5 minutes after it was installed, I took a shower and I couldn't smell chlorine at all. So that was one, subjective, objective marker for me to say, hey, this thing's actually working. It also impacted the taste of my water and the viscosity of it, or smoothness of it. So this video, I talk about how, the municipal water supply could be contributing to your chronic disease in various ways. And we want to have clean water. And then recently, we made this video on structured water, and does water have a fourth phase, and how does that impact your health? And this video, we talk about not only having, purified water, but what are the qualities of water that lead to health beyond just hydrating us? And this book here, The Fourth Phase of Water by Gerald Pollack, goes deep dive into that. And Gerald Pollack is the #1 water researcher alive today. And so if you're interested in this topic, watch this video and read his book. But essentially, water functions again as an electrochemical conduit for us. We are, the planet is 75% water, the surface of the planet. Our bodies are 70% water, but our molecules are 99% water. So if you have unhealthy water, not enough water, poorly charged water, your health can take a nosedive quickly. And on the flip side, if you've got all the good forms there, you can improve quickly. So we are charged beings, and part of that is because we are water largely, and water has what's called a dipole, or has a charge. And then we have electromagnetic fields outside of us, all around us, that can positively or negatively impact us. We can promote positive by staying connected to the earth, and we can promote optimal water contribution to our positive charge by taking toxins out and structuring it. So now we will switch to today's conversation, which is the next step from that, which is charge matters. We are charged, and charge impacts pH. So through the years, I've often been asked about alkaline water, right? Should I drink alkaline water? Does alkaline water matter, et cetera, et cetera. So before we dive into that question, we want to understand pH. And so the pH scale goes from 0 to 14. Sorry if this brings back bad memories of high school science. But it's important to know from a biology perspective. So 0 is acidic. That's as acidic as you could go, okay? Whoa, sorry. 14 is alkaline, or alkaline, however you want to say it. And that's as basic. Basic is another way to say it. Acid base or acid alkaline. Two different ways of saying it. And then 7 would be neutral, is what you're taught in school. Okay, so if you go too far from 7 down to 0, you're becoming more and more acidic. If you go too far above 7 up to 14, you're becoming more and more basic. Well, if you become acidic, that's where cancer loves to be. That's where infection likes to be. That's where a lack of oxygen is. So low oxygen or anaerobic situations. Okay. Basic, you can be too basic. Okay. So where health lives is right in the, let's zoom out here. So health functions in a tight window. And we alluded to this last week on one of the questions that somebody asked. But biological human life lives between 7.35 and 7.45 pH. Okay, so this is the blood pH. This is where we need to keep it. And we have 3 different buffer systems in our physiology dedicated to keeping our blood pH between 7.35 and 7.45. If you go too far out either way, you're dead. Okay. Well, within this range, we are healthy. Going outside this range, we are unhealthy. And the pH is associated with charge. So if we go to charge in the body can be measured in millivolts. So as MVs. Okay. So 7.35 is a negative 20 millivolts, and 7.45 is negative 25 millivolts. So you could literally take a voltmeter and measure, put the leads across a glass of water or on your skin, or somewhere on some other thing in your house that is electrically charged, and you could measure the millivolts or the wattage or the ohms, depending on what you have it set to. So the pH in the human body, 7.35 is equal to negative 20 millivolts, 7.45 is equal to negative 25 millivolts. So we want to have a good, either a pH between that range or a charge between negative 20 to negative 25. And so the question about should we drink alkaline water? Well, if you drink an alkaline water of 14, look how far away that is from physiologic range of 7.45. If you drank 14 alkaline water, you might think, oh, if alkaline's good, then let me drink as high as possible. But dumping a pH 14 water down your throat is a punch in the face to your system, right? Because your system wants to be between 7.35 and 7.45. So if you drink that 14, that's going to change your voltage, and that's going to put a high demand on your buffer systems to bring that 14 all the way down into this range, okay? In the same way, if you drank a pH water of 2, say, which is like battery acid, obviously that wouldn't be good for you, but say it wouldn't hurt you just by drinking it, again, you'd have to expend buffer resources to increase that pH up into the physiologic range. And again, this would be down this way, like cancer is a positive 30 millivolts, okay? So as you go down the acid scale, you're going up in charge, up from negative to the positive range. If you're going up the pH scale, you're going down the charge, okay? So, you're going down into the negative 30s, negative 50s, that way. So we want to have good charge, good pH. Well, how do you know what your charge is? Most people aren't going to track their charge. Most people aren't hooking up, charge devices to measure their charge, but it's very easy to measure your pH. It's hard to measure your blood pH, okay? That needs to be done with blood gas testing, and that's painful, has to puncture an artery to do it. You don't want to do that. But you can test your urine or saliva pH to get an idea of what your body pH is. It's not 100%, but it's a rough estimate. Why? Well, the urine and the saliva are giving you an idea of extracellular pH. So the fluid outside of your cells, or the fluid that all your cells live in, is the extracellular fluid, okay? So we can shoot for an extracellular pH of 7.35 to 7.45, and that would be taking us to a very good place in terms of pH and in terms of charge, which leads to health. So you could buy saliva or urine pH test strips, and what you're measuring in the saliva or the urine is usually 0.8 millivolts different from what the blood is, and typically 0.8 less, okay? So if our goal is 7.35, then we'd like our urine or saliva test strip to be a result of 6.5, right? Why would we want that? That's acidic. No, but then you add the 0.8 to it, right? Add that up, and that becomes 7.3. So that gets us close, okay? So that would be one way that you could track, how am I doing from a pH health perspective, from a charge perspective, from an electrochemical gradient perspective. So if you are someone who got on the call and you said, hey, I'm tired, or I'm in pain, or whatever the malady is, if you are poorly hydrated, if you have a poor pH, if you have a poor charge, then one way to monitor that would be to get some test strips and find out, where am I at? Say you were at a 4.5, okay, on the test strip. Well, plus the 0.8, that's going to just be a 5.3. Well, that's acidic. That's not good. So that would be something that you could track over time and take action to seek to raise it to that 6.5 to get you back up into that optimal physiologic range. And then when you do that, also observe, well, what's my energy level like now? What's my pain level like now? What's my whatever the symptom was level like now? Okay. And so the next question would be, how do we raise the pH or lower the pH depending on what's going on? But most people are going to need to raise the pH, because most people and most of the standard American way of living is driving an acidic type pH. So diet is a big one, right? Acidic foods are going to drive you the wrong way. Acidic foods like grains, like dairy, lower your pH, which increases your voltage towards bad things, towards inflammation, towards cancer, towards all of that. So you want to be consuming alkalizing foods, cutting out acidic foods. So acidic foods, grains, dairies, nuts, and seeds when taking that too high of a level. Alkalinizing foods, your veggies are the best, okay? Your green leafies, but fruits do it as well. What kind of water? Obviously, you want to drink the cleanest water. You want to drink structured water. We talked previously about marine therapy and how the cleanest water on Earth comes from vortex pools in the Atlantic off the coast of Spain, and that 100 meters down, and that water has all the trace minerals that we need and are found in our bodies in the exact ratios that are found in our bodies. So our bodies are basically seawater when optimal. And so we want to have the right amount of water and the right amount of trace minerals to be human seawater, so to speak. Addressing EMF exposure. Are you grounding? You can do things like drink sodium bicarbonate to increase the alkalinity if you're very acidic. There's lots of different things we can do. And I think, the question and answer session will help draw those out further. But I wanted to bring this to your attention today because pH is, something that cannot be denied physiologically, but it's something that takes a back seat, in reality for most people, even in medicine. In medicine, what do we follow? We follow height and weight. We follow blood pressure and pulse ox or specific oxygen. Well, we don't follow pH, right? Why isn't pH part of the vitals? Why aren't there pH test strips at every doctor's office during the vitals section, or the vitals part of the visit? That's something we could do, and that'd give us an idea of another area that we could track and improve upon. Probably isn't being followed because there's not a drug for increasing and decreasing pH. So I want you to be aware of this. Know that pH matters, and one reason it matters is because it's tied to and associated with your charge, and your electrochemical gradient or your charge matters because that's directing optimal physiology in your body. So keeping a 5G phone in your pocket isn't helping you from a charge perspective or a health perspective. Living in a high rise where you never touch grass barefoot is not helping you from a health or charge perspective. Living on municipal water is not helping you. Okay, so let's open this up for questions and comments and see where it takes us.
I love this. We're in. We already have the test strips. It's super easy. It's non-invasive. And in like 10 seconds, you have your answer.
Yeah.
So Emily, have you done it before?
Yeah. It's funny. I actually I just did this literally yesterday. I hadn't for a while, but I started doing it for my kids, and just because I was curious about them.
Is there a better time of day to take it, or because your urine changes through the day, doesn't it, Dr. B? Or
Yep. So, I said, why isn't this at every vitals portion of every doctor's visit? And the reason that it probably isn't is that you're walking in at a different time of day. You may have chewed gum, you may have smoked, you may have ate lunch, So there are a lot of things that impact it. So I like to, a baseline would be do your first morning urine every day, right? And then, that's so I track this on myself. It's probably been 6 years or so, long, probably close to 10 now. A while ago for months, and you can on Amazon you can get pH test strips. They're cheap, and so they have them that range from I believe it's 6 to 14, and then 0 to 6. And so if you and they show you colors, so they'll show you green to red to let's go look at them. It's easier to show you than talk about. So let's, one moment. pH. All right, so if we go there, so there's lots of them, and they're inexpensive here. Let me see if there's one. So don't get the pool ones. Here we go. These are similar to what I had. Oh, these are 0 to 14. Okay, get these because these are all in one. You don't have to buy 2 different rolls. This is different than what I had those years ago. But see, you've got the test strips, and 0 is going to be red. Ideal would be between 7 and 8 there, kind of yellow, green, green. And then you go up to 14, which would be the darkest. Okay. So basically you wake up in the morning, you put it in your mouth and get it wet with saliva, or you insert it into your urine stream, or do both, do waking morning saliva and urine. You can just, you pull the, oh, there you go. You pull the, where's the picture? You pull the strip out there and can rip off as long or short a piece as you want. So you could just do saliva like this lady's doing here. And then you can do urine and compare it to the color there. And so, if it tests and shows you you're between 7 and 8, then you're good. And then, when you're beginning, I would pick other times of the day that are standard for you to go do over time, so you can get an idea of here's what I am when I'm waking, and maybe I do one after I eat, or before I eat, after I eat, just to get used to what do certain foods do and how much do they impact it. And then, if I eat dinner at 7 and I go to bed at 9:30 or 10, do one before bed, before I brush my teeth, so it doesn't impact it, and see what is it and track it over time. But there are a lot of things that impact it. So that's why it's probably not done in office like that so frequently. But if once you've done it long enough, you can figure out, okay, here's where I typically am. And I've noticed here's what will throw me off. So if I'm always around a 7 and I go somewhere and eat, chicken wings or whatever it is you eat, and you see, holy cow, that threw me to a 5, that was a very acidic meal. Or, you drank a Coke, or you drank a seltzer water, see what that does to you, right? So go ahead, Emily, if you want to share more on how you were doing it.
No, I don't. The strips I had broke it down by every 0.25. I think the range was like 4 to 9, maybe, or something like that. No, maybe it was 5 to, I think it was 5 to 8, so you could see 5.5, 5.6, 5.75.
That would be nice. That might be what these are doing here. Oh, no, that's pool. Don't do that one. But yeah, here you go, 4.5 to 9. And let's see if we can get, yeah, here you go. So this is doing it in 25 increments right there. Mm-hmm. So these would help you be more discerning, which is helpful because look, 7, there's 7, 7.25, 7.5. So we'd like to be, that 7.25 to 7.5 area, in that range. So these are $11 for 200 of them. That's a good deal. So again, something you can do to track yourself, especially if you're saying, hey, I'm nailing everything else and I just don't feel like I'm I'm where I should be. Here's something you could add that's inexpensive, easy to do, create a little spreadsheet real fast, or just a line piece of paper and date, AM time, result, and you can track it over time and see how you're doing. I remember when I started, a long time ago when I did it, I was acidic. I was like, I had to buy the less than 6 ones because I would always show 6, but 6 doesn't tell me if it's 6 or is it 4.5. So I bought the less than 6 ones, and I had some in the 4.55 range, and then got up to the point where I was pretty much 7 or 8 all the time. I remember we went to lunch one day and I was having staff do it too. And I had chicken wings and I was still an 8, and they were mad at me after because theirs were all messed up after eating the wings. I was like, well, I've been tracking and implementing things a lot longer than you guys have. So you can make a little competition out of it if you want. What
So I
else?
was confused about the number. I'm sorry, I couldn't read your writing with the 6.35 or something. What was in the corner that you wrote?
Yeah. So the strips are going to be about 0.8 off of what your physiology is. Okay, so if you so thank you. I actually misspoke here when looking at these. So if you go do this, right, our goal actually isn't 7.25 to 7.5 on the strip. We want it to be between 7.25 and 6.25 and 6.5, because there's about a 0.8 difference between what's on the strip and what your, say, blood pH is. So if you achieve that 6.25 to 6.5 and add the 0.8, that's putting you right at that that number, right? A 6.3 plus, or a 6.5 plus 0.8 is 7.3, which is about where we want to be. So thank you for asking that. But I'm blanking on the official term, but it's basically a variance between the testing and your body, right? So you have to make that little calculation. All I can think of is in quantum physics, and this is super nerdy example that you might not even have a clue about, but there's the uncertainty constant, right? So they do math, and then there's this uncertainty constant that they have to do to make it all work out. So same idea. Here's your pH based on the strip, but here's the 0.8, say, mathematical magic trick you have to do to get the right answer.
Will they tell you that when you buy the strips?
No.
Because I'm going to forget.
Well,
0.8. Okay.
write it down. Come back and watch the video. Yeah, 0.8.
John,
Go
you
ahead.
mentioned leafy vegetables helping to get it to base.
Yep.
And you also mentioned fruit, but what about the acidic fruits?
Yeah, I said some fruits. So
Oh, so
yeah, like
so
all
oranges will run you down to the acidic side.
I mean, probably if probably not if you're, it depends on the case, right? So if you're starting down at the acidic end and you're eating wheat and dairy and the standard American diet and no fruit and veggies, an orange is still going to be better than bread. But from a pH perspective, it's not going to be as beneficial to you as like the spinach would be.
Okay.
Right. So the goal, if you're trying to move it, quickly and more efficiently, you want to go with the spinach and the green leafy stuff. And then, like I mentioned, you could say, hey, I'm going to drink sodium bicarbonate, which is basically baking soda, because that's very alkaline. So that will take you, up the scale faster. And I've done that myself and with other people in the past. Anything else on this?
I was just going to say, for anybody that takes on using it, like, it's a little bit more of an art than a science in the beginning. Like, yeah, track it for like a week or two. It kind of maybe see where you are overall and not get super hung up on like what one test strip says.
Right.
That's what we kind of did. Just you just drive yourself crazy if you're just looking at all these 0.25s.
Yeah. No, that's really good, Emily, because again, it is more important about, hey, if you started at, acidic initially, but 3 weeks later, you're now like falling in the 7.5 to 8 all the time on the strip, or in the equation, then you're doing very good. So again, this is an indirect marker. It's the extracellular fluid. Your blood is not 8, your blood is not 6, you'd be dead, right? But here's the extracellular tissues, which, if you're inflamed outside your cells, that's still impacting your physiology, impacting your conductance and your pH. So get the extracellular fluid as close to that ideal range as possible, and then that impacts the blood levels and the intracellular levels as well. So you just want to see the overall number improve. Yeah.
One question, I sent you an email also. I love sparkling water. How does that impact the pH level?
So the carbonation tends to promote an acidic type pH. So again, it depends on where you're at and then how much you're drinking. So that would be, again, if you're going to test yourself, that'd be something to follow, and kind of see.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's best to first know where we are and then decide what makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but tying into what Emily and Danielle said, I mean, I just can't imagine, every time you pick up an orange, you're going to freak out. Oh, this is going to bring me down the scale. And I don't know if I should have that asparagus because that'll be too alkaline. It's just crazy stuff.
Yeah. On a quick Google search, Niraj, it says unsweetened seltzer water usually has a pH of 3 or 4. Okay, so that's very acidic.
But I also read somewhere, just because it is low pH doesn't mean our body absorbs it like low pH, because our digestive system and the acids in that, they interact very differently. So there's not a direct correlation between what pH of the substance is and how our body takes it.
Well, right. So your buffer systems are going to matter, but you are going to be asked to bring it to neutral, right? Yeah, it's not going to stay 3 or 4 because you drink it and burn a hole straight through your GI tract. You'd only drink 1 and be done, right? So, but it's going to put a demand on buffer systems. So it's going to ask the kidney and ask bones and ask protein substrates to adapt to take that 3 or 4 up to that 7.35, 7.45 area. Just like that alkaline water question, Kangen water, is it good? Should I spend the money on the machine? All that. Well, if you're drinking a 10, a 12, a 14, you're using the buffer systems to bring it down to that 7.35, 7.45 range. So you're taxing yourself that way. But no, you're not going to burn a hole through your stomach drinking it, at least initially.